Daniel and Sophie had what many would call a picture-perfect marriage. They had been together for nearly a decade, married for 7 years, and had shared countless memories filled with love, laughter, and mutual respect. Daniel, a successful architect, had always been a devoted husband, and Sophie, once vibrant and full of life, had supported him every step. Their life together seemed like a dream to outsiders, but within the walls of their home, a different story was unfolding. In recent months, Sophie had grown increasingly distant. The once lively conversations that filled their evenings had dwindled into brief exchanges, and the warmth that characterized their relationship seemed to have faded. Daniel noticed the change, but couldn't focus on what was wrong. He tried to address it by planning romantic dinners, taking time off work, and even suggesting they go on a vacation together. But nothing seemed to bring Sophie back to the person she once was. Unbeknownst to Daniel, Sophie had been struggling with a deep sense of inadequacy and self-doubt. She looked in the mirror and no longer recognized the confident woman she once was. Instead, she saw someone who had lost her spark, her allure, and most importantly, her sense of self. The pressures of life, aging, and the monotony of routine had taken a toll on her, leaving her feeling invisible and undesired. One night, as they sat in their quiet living room, Sophie decided to open up about what had been weighing heavily on her heart. What she was about to say would shake the very foundation of their marriage and force them both to confront the harsh realities of unmet needs and unspoken desires. Daniel, at 35, was a man who had built his life around his love for Sophie. As an architect, he was used to creating solid structures, something that was mirrored in his approach to his marriage. He believed in building a strong foundation, nurturing it with care, and ensuring it stood the test of time. To him, Sophie was not just his wife, but his partner, his confidant, and the love of his life. He was deeply in love with her and couldn't imagine a life without her. However, Daniel's dedication to his career had sometimes led him to overlook the subtle changes in Sophie's demeanor, something he would soon regret. Sophie, at 33, had always been a vibrant and confident woman. She had a career in interior design, which allowed her to express her creativity, and she took great pride in her work. But over the past few years, Sophie had felt a shift within herself. She began to question her worth, not just as a professional, but as a woman. The signs of aging, the routine of married life, and the feeling that she was no longer the attractive, desirable woman she once was, began to gnaw at her. Sophie had always been someone who thrived on attention and admiration, and as those became less frequent, her self-esteem plummeted. Mia, Sophie's close friend, had been a sounding board for Sophie's feelings of inadequacy. At 32, Mia was single and often shared stories of her dating life, which only deepened Sophie's feelings of being trapped in a monotonous marriage. Mia, although well-meaning, sometimes fueled Sophie's insecurities by highlighting the excitement of single life and the attention she received from men. This contrast made Sophie question whether she was missing out on something, leading her down a path of doubt and longing for something she couldn't quite define. It was a quiet evening in Daniel and Sophie's living room, the soft glow of a single lamp casting long shadows across the room. The air was thick with unspoken tension as Sophie sat on the edge of the couch, nervously fidgeting with her hands. Daniel, sensing something was off, leaned against the wall, his arms crossed as he observed his wife with concern. He could tell that whatever was on her mind was heavy, but he wasn't prepared for what she was about to say. Sophie finally broke the silence, her voice barely above a whisper. "Daniel, we need to talk about something. Something that's been on my mind for a while." Daniel's heart sank. The seriousness in her tone made him anxious, but he nodded, urging her to continue. She took a deep breath, as if gathering the courage to say the words that had been tormenting her. I feel like I'm losing myself, like I'm not attractive anymore. I need to feel desired again, Daniel, but not just by you." Daniel's eyes widened in disbelief. The shock of her words hit him like a tidal wave. He felt a cold wave of shock run through his body, his mind racing to grasp the meaning behind her statement. Was she suggesting what he thought she was? "What are you saying, Sophie?" Daniel asked, his voice trembling with a mix of confusion and fear. He needed her to clarify, to tell him that he was misunderstanding her. Sophie looked down at her hands, unable to meet his gaze. "One night, Daniel. Just one night with another man. I need to know that someone else." The room fell into a heavy silence. Daniel's mind was spinning, trying to process what Sophie had just said. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. The woman he loved, the woman he had devoted his life to, was asking for something he never imagined he would have to consider. "You can't be serious," Daniel finally said, his voice breaking. "We've been through so much together. Is our love not enough?" Sophie's eyes filled with tears as she looked up at him. "It's not about love, Daniel. I love you deeply, but I feel invisible, like I'm fading away. I need this, for me." Daniel was at a loss for words. The woman he loved was standing in front of him, broken and desperate, and he didn't know how to help her. All he knew was that their marriage would never be the same after this conversation. As Daniel stood there, reeling from Sophie's confession, a storm of emotions surged within him. Shock, disbelief, anger, and deep sadness battled for dominance in his heart. He felt like the ground had been pulled out from under him, and he was free falling into an abyss of uncertainty. Sophie's request was something he never imagined he would have to confront in their marriage, and it left him questioning everything he thought he knew about their relationship. Daniel's voice trembled as he tried to process what Sophie was asking. "You can't be serious," he repeated, searching her face for any sign that this was a cruel joke. But all he saw was her pain and desperation. "We've been through so much together. Is our love not enough?" Sophie's tears spilled over as she shook her head, her voice breaking as she tried to explain. "It's not about love, Daniel. I love you deeply, more than anything. But I feel invisible, like I'm fading away. I need this, for me." The weight of her words hung heavily in the air, and Daniel felt as though he had been punched in the gut. He couldn't understand how the woman he adored could feel so unloved, so unwanted, that she would seek validation from another man. It felt like a betrayal, even though he knew that wasn't Sophie's intention. As Sophie continued to speak, Daniel's mind raced, replaying their years together, trying to pinpoint when things had gone wrong. Had he been so focused on his work, on providing for their future, that he had neglected the present? Had he failed to make Sophie feel loved and desired? These questions gnawed at him, adding to the confusion and hurt swirling inside him. Sophie's voice was a mix of sorrow and pleading, as she tried to make Daniel understand. "It's not about you, Daniel. It's about me. I'm broken inside, and I don't know how else to fix it. I need to feel wanted again, by someone other than you." Her words cut deep, but Daniel could see the pain in her eyes, the genuine distress she was in. He realized that this wasn't about infidelity. It was about Sophie's struggle with her own self-worth, her desperate need to feel validated and desired. But even as he recognized this, it didn't lessen the ache in his chest or the fear that their marriage was on the brink of collapse. As the night wore on, the conversation dwindled into silence. Sophie eventually went to bed, leaving Daniel alone with his thoughts. He remained in the living room, staring blankly at the wall, his mind in turmoil. The woman he loved was in pain, and he didn't know how to help her. The very idea of her being with another man was too much to bear. Yet he also couldn't ignore her anguish. For the first time in their marriage, Daniel felt completely helpless. He had always been the one to fix things, to make everything right, but this was beyond his control. All he could do was sit there, grappling with the reality of Sophie's request, and wondering if their marriage could survive this crisis. That night, Daniel lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, as Sophie slept peacefully beside him. He could hear her steady breathing, and feel the warmth of her body close to him, but it did nothing to soothe the storm raging inside him. His mind was consumed with the conversation they had just had. The words that Sophie had spoken replaying over and over in his head. How could she ask for this? How could she think that being with someone else would solve anything? Daniel's thoughts were a chaotic mix of confusion, anger, and despair. He couldn't comprehend how the woman he loved so deeply could even entertain the idea of being with another man, let alone ask for his permission. But as the hours ticked by, his thoughts began to shift. He started to question himself, to wonder if he was somehow to blame for Sophie's feelings of inadequacy. Maybe I've failed her, he thought. Maybe I haven't made her feel loved enough, desired enough. Daniel's mind drifted back to the early days of their relationship, when they were young and carefree, when their love was new and exciting. He remembered how he used to go out of his way to make Sophie feel special, to show her how much she meant to him. But as time went on, as life became more complicated, he had taken those small gestures for granted. Had he lost sight of what really mattered? Had he let the demands of his career and the routine of daily life come between them? He thought about the countless nights he had spent working late, the weekends he had sacrificed for the sake of his projects. Sophie had always been understanding, always supportive, but had he been too focused on his ambitions to notice the toll it was taking on her? Had he neglected her needs, her desire to feel valued and cherished? These thoughts tormented Daniel as he lay there, unable to find any peace. He loved Sophie more than anything in the world, but now he was faced with the possibility that their love might not be enough to keep their marriage intact. The idea of her being with someone else was unbearable, yet he knew that denying her request might push her even further away. As the first light of dawn began to creep through the curtains, Daniel felt a deep sense of despair. He didn't know what to do, didn't know how to fix what was broken between them. All he knew was that their marriage was at a crossroads, and whatever decision he made would have profound consequences. Daniel finally closed his eyes, but sleep eluded him. His thoughts were a tangled mess of fear, doubt, and an overwhelming sense of loss. The woman he loved was slipping away from him, and he didn't know how to hold on to her. All he could do was wait for the morning, hoping that somehow they would find a way to navigate through this crisis together. The next morning, Daniel and Sophie sat across from each other at the kitchen table. The previous night's conversation still hung heavily in the air, and the tension between them was palpable. They both knew that they couldn't leave things unresolved, but neither of them knew how to begin the difficult conversation that lay ahead. Daniel was the first to speak, his voice calm but filled with an underlying sadness. "Sophie, I've thought about what you said. I can't pretend it doesn't hurt, but I need to understand. Why do you think this will help? Why do you need to be desired by someone else to feel whole again?" Sophie looked down at her hands, struggling to find the right words. "I don't know, Daniel. It's just, I've lost something inside of me. I need to feel wanted, to know that I'm still attractive, not just to you, but to the world. It's like validation." Daniel's heart ached as he listened to Sophie's words. He could hear the pain and confusion in her voice, and it tore at him. He wanted to help her, to make her feel loved and valued, but he didn't know how to do that when she was seeking validation from someone else. "But why isn't my love enough validation for you?" Daniel asked, his voice tinged with sorrow. "Why isn't what we have enough?" Sophie's eyes filled with tears as she looked up at him. "It's not about you, Daniel. It's about me. I'm broken inside, and I don't know how else to fix it. I need to feel wanted again, by someone other than you." Daniel felt a pang of guilt as he realized that Sophie's pain was deeper than he had initially understood. It wasn't just about feeling desired. It was about her sense of self-worth, her need to reconnect with the person she used to be. But even as he recognized this, it didn't make the situation any easier to bear. They sat in silence for a few moments, the weight of their conversation pressing down on them. Daniel could see that Sophie was hurting, and he wanted to help her, but he didn't know how to do that without compromising his own values and the integrity of their marriage. "Sophie," Daniel finally said, his voice soft but firm, "I love you more than anything in this world, and I want to support you through whatever you're going through. But I can't agree to what you're asking. Our marriage means too much to me." You mean too much to me. Sophie nodded, her tears flowing freely now. I know, Daniel. I've been thinking too. And maybe what I'm looking for isn't out there with someone else. Maybe it's something I need to find within myself. With your support, Daniel reached across the table and took Sophie's hand in his, squeezing it gently. We'll get through this together, Sophie. We've faced challenges before, and we can do it again. But we need to be honest with each other, no matter how difficult it is. Sophie squeezed his hand back, her eyes filled with a mixture of relief and sadness. She knew that their journey was far from over, but she also knew that they had taken the first step towards healing. They both understood that this wasn't a problem that could be solved overnight, but they were willing to face it together, with honesty and open communication. A week had passed since the night of Sophie's shocking confession. During that time, both Daniel and Sophie had spent a lot of time reflecting on their relationship and what had led them to this point. They knew that they couldn't ignore the issue, but they also understood that there was no easy solution. One evening, they sat together in the living room, the tension between them having eased somewhat over the past few days. Daniel knew that they needed to have a final conversation about Sophie's request, to decide how they would move forward. He took a deep breath, preparing himself for whatever was to come. Sophie, Daniel began, his voice calm and measured. I've had time to think, and I want to support you through this. I understand that you're hurting, and I want to help you in any way I can, but I can't agree to what you're asking. I can't stand the thought of you being with someone else. It would destroy me, and I don't think our marriage could survive it. Sophie nodded, her expression somber. I've been thinking too, Daniel. I've realized that what I'm looking for can't be found with someone else. It's something I need to find within myself. With your support, I don't want to lose you, and I don't want to destroy what we've built together. Daniel felt a wave of relief wash over him. He had been so afraid that Sophie would insist on going through with her request, but hearing her say that she wanted to work through this together gave him hope. We'll get through this, Sophie, he said softly. We'll take it one step at a time, and we'll figure out how to make our marriage stronger. Sophie reached for Daniel's hand, her eyes filled with tears. I'm so sorry for everything, Daniel. I never wanted to hurt you. I felt so lost, and I didn't know how to find my way back. Daniel pulled her into a tight embrace, holding her close as she cried softly against his chest. I know, Sophie, he whispered. We'll figure this out together. You're not alone in this. As they sat there, wrapped in each other's arms, they both knew that their marriage had been shaken to its core. But they also knew that they were willing to do whatever it took to rebuild the trust and love that had been damaged. It wouldn't be easy, and there would be many difficult conversations ahead, but they were committed to each other and to their marriage. Daniel and Sophie spent the rest of the evening talking openly and honestly about their feelings, their fears, and their hopes for the future. They knew that they couldn't go back to the way things were before, but they were determined to create a new path forward, one that was built on a foundation of trust, communication, and mutual respect. As the night wore on, they made a promise to each other to always be honest, no matter how difficult the truth might be. They understood that the road ahead would be challenging, but they were willing to face it together, hand in hand. The story of Daniel and Sophie is one of love, pain, and ultimately, hope. Their marriage was tested in ways they never could have imagined, but through it all, they remained committed to each other. The conversation that began with Sophie's shocking request could have torn them apart, but instead, it became a catalyst for deeper understanding and communication. Daniel and Sophie realized that their love was not just about passion or romance, but about the willingness to face challenges together, to be vulnerable with each other, and to support each other through the darkest of times. They learned that even when love is strong, it requires constant nurturing and attention to thrive. Their journey was far from over, but they had taken the first step towards healing. They knew that there would be difficult days ahead, moments of doubt and fear, but they also knew that they could overcome anything as long as they faced it together. In the end, Daniel and Sophie's story is a reminder that love is not always easy, but it is always worth fighting for. Their marriage, though shaken, was not broken. It was a testament to the power of love, resilience, and the strength of the human spirit. As they moved forward, Daniel and Sophie committed to each other to always prioritize their relationship, to communicate openly, and to never take each other for granted. They understood that their marriage would continue to evolve, but they were ready to face whatever challenges came their way, knowing that they had the strength and love to overcome them. Thank you for being a part of Narrative Stories. Your support and engagement mean the world to us. We are committed to bringing you the best in storytelling. What kinds of stories would you like to see next? Share your thoughts in the comments below.